So Gauss elimination is very interesting. Okay, so I think this lecture and the next lecture, what we are going to do is we are just going to discuss about Gauss elimination. And the Gauss elimination that we are going to discuss now is known as naive Gauss elimination. The reason we say it naive because it's not smart. There are pitfalls to this method. And what are those pitfalls? We are going to study in the next lecture, and how to circumvent those pitfalls also we are going to study it in the next lecture. Okay, so let us focus on your Gauss elimination. So I'll explain you with a very simple example here. Let us take this example, or maybe an even simpler example, so that I should be able to demonstrate you how you have to perform Gauss elimination. So this is your x1, 2x2, x3 is equal to 8. This is your equation number 1. x2, 1. This is going to be x1 minus 3. So these are the three equations, and we have to find out the solution of these three equations. So basically, when I say solution, you have to find out the value of x1, you have to find out the value of x2, and you have to find out the value of x3, and that's all. Okay. So to do that, what you are going to do here is you are going to write down these equations in the form of matrix. So if you want to write down this equation in the form of matrix, you are first going to write down the coefficients. So the coefficients are 1, this is going to be 2, 1, this is going to be 2, 1, minus 1, 1, 1, minus 2, and so on. And this is going to be x1, x2, x3. It's going to be 8, 1, minus 3. So how do we know this is correct? What we have written is correct. You just multiply this into this, and you should get equation number 1. This into this, you should get equation number 2. This into this, you should get equation number 3. So blindly you just you should follow this. Okay, you just have to write down the coefficients, then write down the second matrix, and then write down the constants. So we have to find out the solution of these three equations. Okay, so to do that, we are going to follow Gauss elimination. And Gauss elimination is very simple. So basically, what is the idea behind Gauss elimination is to eliminate. Okay, so in a more systematic manner, I can say what I will do here is I will make this element, and this element as 0, and I'll make this as an upper triangular matrix. Okay, that means this is going, these elements will have some value, and these will be 0, 0, and 0. Okay, so what I want is I want to make this element as 0. So to do that, what you are going to do is you are going to perform row transformation. Okay, elementary row transformation. You cannot do column transformation, you just have to do row transformation. So you just have to make this element 0, this element 0, and this element 0 by adding or subtracting some value and adding one row or subtracting one row from another row. Okay, so let's focus on this element now. So what I want is I want to make this 1 as 0. So to make this 1 as 0, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract R1 from R3, and I'm going to replace this R3 with this value. Did you understand what I'm saying? I want to make this element 0. So what I will do is I'll subtract this row from R1, and I'll replace the value that I am getting, replace the row R3 by that particular value. So I hope that is simple. So if you do that, you'll realize that 1 minus 1 comes out to be 0. Okay, 1 minus 2 comes out to be minus 1, and minus 2 minus 1 comes out to be minus 3. So let us write down the equation here. So this is going to be 1 2 1. So you just have to write down the first row, because nothing is going to change in first row. You just have to write down the first row and second row as it is. Okay, so whatever transformation you are going to do on this side, you also have to do it on this side. So understand, this is very important. Okay, so we'll first write down the two rows, because nothing is going to change in this row and it's not going to change in this row. The only change that is going to happen in this row. So let us do this now. Sorry, I wrote this. So R3 minus of R1. So what is the value of R3 here? 1. Minus of R1 is 1. So 1 minus 1 comes out to be what? Comes out to be 0. Everybody is clear with this point? Again, what is R3? 1. Minus of what is R1? 2. 1 minus 2 is minus 1. So again, for the third column, third element, minus 2 minus 1, that comes out to be minus 3. Now let us talk about this element now. So for this element, it's going to be minus 3 minus of 8, that comes out to be minus 11. Okay. So once we have made this element 0, our next job will be to make this element as 0. Okay. What you are going to do is you are going to make this element as 0. And once you do this, then you are going to make this element 0. Now understand one thing. What you have to do is first make this element as 0, not this element. Because you cannot make this element 0. Because if you try to make this element 0, you will get some value here as well. So the value of 0 will change. Okay, so you have to be careful. So this kind of mistake I see students making. What they do is instead of making this element 0, they try to make this element 0 first after making this as 0. So if you try to do that, what is going to happen? This will again get some value. Okay, yes, there are situations where you can make this element 0, but only if this element is 0 here. Okay, if already it is 0, then you can make it as 0. Understand this thing. Okay, so let me use this again. So what transformation you are going to do here? You are going to write down that R2. So this is your R2 minus this is your R1. If I multiply it by 2, what I'll get here is it's going to be 0, and that I am going to put that value in R2. This is how you should write down your transformation. So let us write down. I think I shortage of page here, but anyways, I'll write it down here. We have space here. Let's use this space. Again, where is the change happening? Change is happening in R2. So every other row is not going to change. So you are just going to keep every other row as it is. Change is going to happen in this row. So this is going to be So let us talk about this element. So 2 minus of 2, what is the value of R1? R1 is 1. So this comes out to be 0. So you can directly write down 0 here. Okay. Then again this is 1. 1 minus of 2 into R1. What is R1? 2. So 2 to the 4. 1 minus 4 comes out to be minus 3. So we are going to write down minus 3. Okay. Let's talk about this element now. Minus 1 minus of 2 into, what is the value of R1? R1 is 1. So minus 1 minus 2 comes out to be minus 3. Okay. Now let me erase this. So you have to be very careful here because the chances of making mistake is very high. Okay, because you're dealing with addition, subtraction. So it might happen that you might forget a sign or something. So if that happens, then the whole solution is going to be wrong. So you have to be very careful at this point about the sign. Now let us move on to the next step. So we have made this element as 0, this element is 0. Now the next thing is going to be to make this element as 0. Okay. So again it's very easy. So let me copy this thing. Sorry. Copy this in next copy. Let's copy it on the next page. And yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we forgot to fill this element also. This element. But if you do that, I think the value that you'll be getting is going to be minus 15. So you have already made this element 0, this element 0. Now we have to make this element as 0. Again, you are going to perform elementary row operation on row number 3. Okay. You can make use of you cannot make use of R1. So you just have to make use of R2. The question here is why you cannot make use of R1. So if you make use of R1 to elementary row operation, you'll disturb this value of 0 because this element will have some value. Are you getting it? So you'll disturb this 0 here. So we don't want to disturb that 0, and that is why instead of making this 0, we made this 0 first. Okay. So be careful at this point. So let's say I want to make this 0. So this is already 1. Okay. How can I make this 0? First, I'll have to make this as 1. So I'll say that R2 is going to be divided by 3. So once you divide by 3, it's going this will become 1. Okay. But I want 0 here. So this is already minus 1. So I have to make it plus 1. This has this plus 1. So I'll take this as minus. Okay. And this is 1. So let us write down this as R3. Okay. So when you perform this and you replace R3 by this, I think if you do this, you can check here. Let us talk about this element. So R3 is minus 1 by 3. What is R2? Minus 3. So 3 comes out to be 1. 1 plus minus of minus become plus. Minus 1 plus 1, that comes out to be 0. Okay. So perform anything. Okay. Anything. Just try to make this as 0. Okay, it's your job. Again, row number 1, nothing is going to change. Row number 2 is nothing going to change. So we'll write it as it is. Only what is going to happen, row 3 is going to change. So again, let us write down this as this. This is not going to change. Not going to change. Okay, sorry. This will change. So this is 0. So we have made this element as 0. Now what is the next thing that we have to do? We have to find out the value of this element. So this is going to be minus 3 minus of, what is the value of R2 here? Minus 3. So minus 3 divided by 3. So 3, this is going to be minus 1. Minus 1 minus 1 becomes plus 1. So minus 3 plus 1 becomes minus of 2. Okay. R3 again is going to be, for this element is going to be minus 11. Minus R2 is going to be minus 15. 3 5 are 15. So again this minus becomes plus. Minus 11 plus 5 comes out to be minus 6. So now once you have done this, you can see, now if you multiply this row by this, you'll find out it comes out to be minus 2 x3 minus 6. Okay. And if you do that, you'll find out the value of x3 is equal to 3. So this is the value of your x3. Okay. Now again this multiply by this is going to be 0 into x1 minus 3 into x2, 3 into x3 is equal to minus 15. Okay. So again, once you substitute this x3 in this equation, you'll find out the value of x2 that we are getting is 2. Again, this multiplied by this x1 this is 3, this is 2, and once you solve this, you'll find out that the value of x1 that you're getting is 1. Now this method is known as back substitution. Okay, we'll find out x3 and we'll substitute it in x2. You'll find out in this equation, you'll find out x2. We'll substitute it in this equation, you'll find out x1. This is known as back substitution. Okay, and the method of making this 0 is known as elimination, forward elimination. So this is how you are going to use your Gauss elimination to find out the solution. Okay, so I hope you guys have understood what is Gauss elimination and how to perform Gauss elimination. And this elimination is known as naive Gauss elimination. So in the next lecture, we are going to see what are the disadvantages of this naive Gauss elimination and how to circumvent those pitfalls. We are going to see in the next lecture.